So you followed all the rules. You've got a decent camera. Your framing is pretty clean. Maybe you're using the rule of thirds as your compositional technique, and your lighting is, well, fine. And yet, when you watch the interview back, it just feels flat. Not broken, not technically wrong, just frickin' lifeless. I see this exact problem all the time. The frustrating part is, it's usually not the mic, the camera, or the lights. It's something much more fundamental than all of that stuff. If your interviews feel technically fine but emotionally dead, this video is for you. Let me describe a situation you've probably been in. You've set up an interview, you place your subject on a chair, you frame a nice medium close-up shot, you turn on a light, you set your exposure, and then you just hit record. On paper, this is what you've been told to do. But when you watch it back, something's missing. Something doesn't feel right. The subject feels stiff. The background feels empty. The audio feels maybe a bit distant. There's no sense of depth, no intimacy, no energy. And almost every beginner responds in exactly the same way. They assume they need better gear, a better camera, a better microphone, maybe some more lights. But that's the furthest thing from the truth. It's not the real problem. So here's where everything changes. Professional interviews don't feel engaging because of equipment. They feel engaging because of intention. Professionals don't ask, is this technically correct? What they do ask is, what am I trying to make the audience feel? And how does every decision support that? Once you stop chasing rules and start making intentional decisions, your interviews improve almost frickin' immediately. So before you place a camera, before you touch a light, before you think about exposure or lenses or microphones, you need to answer one question. What is this interview actually about? And I'm not talking about the topic. I'm talking about the person. Who is this character in the story? What are they dealing with? What do we want the audience to understand or to feel about them? Beginners treat interviews like neutral information delivery. Professionals treat them like character moments. And that difference affects everything. How close the camera should be, how soft or how hard the light should feel, how present the sound needs to be, even how much silence you allow. Without intention, you're just assembling gear. With intention, you're telling a story. This is where many interviews quietly fail. Audio distance. A microphone doesn't just capture sound, it defines how emotionally close the audience feels to the subject. This is why a lavalier or a lapel microphone is so powerful in interviews. A lav, like this guy, allows you to place the microphone very close to the subject's mouth, and that closeness creates intimacy. The voice feels warmer, more present, more human. Even if the picture looks good, if the audio feels distant, the interview feels emotionally disconnected. This is why professionals shooting interviews will often choose a lav even when there's a shotgun mic available. Not because shotgun mics are bad, but because proximity matters. When the mic is close, you hear subtle inflection and emotional nuance. That's not just sound quality, that's storytelling. So your interviews also often feel flat because the location says nothing. A blank wall might be pretty easy, but it'll never add meaning to your story. Instead, think of the background as part of the character. Where does this person belong? What environment helps us understand who they are? A musician in their practice space, a chef in their kitchen, an artist surrounded by their work. When you place someone in their environment, the background starts doing narrative work for you. It helps you tell that story. Lighting then becomes about separating the subject from that space, not flattening everything out. Foreground, subject, background. Depth creates focus, and lighting contrast guides attention. The goal isn't to look cinematic. The goal is to feel specific. And when the background says something about the person in the shot, the interview gains context and emotional weight immediately. This next point has nothing to do with gear or anything technical. Interviews can feel flat because of the human setup. Beginners treat interviews like transactions. Sit here, look there, answer this. Professionals Treat interviews like conversations. The interview starts when you explain the process, when you reduce your subject's anxiety, and when you give them permission to pause or to restart. Sometimes those emotional pauses really make the interview. And if a subject feels rushed, judged, or unsure, it's going to show up immediately. This is why professionals will talk before rolling. They'll ask easy questions first, they'll allow silence, they'll never interrupt the emotional moments, and comfort leads to honesty with your subject. Honesty then leads to better answers, and better answers carry the entire interview and subsequently the story. No camera or light can fix who doesn't feel safe or understood. Your job isn't just to record someone, it's to create the conditions for truth. So here's the shift that I want you to walk away with from this video. Flat interviews aren't a gear problem. They're a clarity and an intention problem. When you understand why you're placing the camera, why your mic needs to be close, why the background matters, and why comfort comes first, your interviews are immediately going to feel more alive. If you were making this mistake before, I guess you're not anymore. And that's really good progress. Now, the natural next step after this is learning how to craft intentional shots. I have a video series that breaks this down, and the first video is right here. This channel exists to help you stop guessing and start creating intentionally. I'll see you in that video.